Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video, wherever you are, whatever you may be doing. Thank you so much for making Ref Brandon and the Todd Family a part of your day. We always greatly appreciate it. If you jump on here live here on this Wednesday evening, feel free to leave a comment in the comment section down below. Make sure to give the video a like, a thumbs up. If you have not yet subscribed to the channel, please do so. And also please share the video on all social media platforms. I know that I was on here this morning, so this will be the second time this week that I've did 2 videos in one day. But it's amazing how when you're on vacation from work, you end up doing more than what you do when you are actually working. So tomorrow I'm probably going to be gone all day long and won't get home until late tomorrow night. So I may not get to do a video tomorrow. So I wanted to go ahead and do tomorrow's video tonight. And if I can, by some chance, get on here tomorrow night sometime, then it'll be something totally different. Don't know what it'll be, but it'll be something. So if you follow the channel, you know that this morning's video was my normal weekly top 10 countdown. Hard to believe it was the last top 10 countdown in the month of September, because next Wednesday will be the 1st of October. So tonight's video will not be the weekly top 10 countdown. We're going to talk some football. But of course, I'll mention a few other things before I talk about football. One is, if you're a sports fan, then this is just an amazing weekend for you, because not only do we have football, but it's the final weekend and the final week of the regular season for Major League Baseball, and pretty much every single division race and every single wild card race is still up for grabs. So a lot of these playoff spots and division winners are going to come down to the last day of the regular season. And you also have the Ryder Cup, which starts Saturday at 7 a.m. So if you like other sports besides just football, you have the Ryder Cup starting Saturday morning at 7 a.m. Hey there, the best. Glad to have you here. And hey there, Girl B. Glad to have you here. I think it's y'all's first time here in the comment section. So if it is your first time being here, whatever reason made you stop by the channel, I greatly appreciate it. If it is your first time being here, feel free to give the video a like, a thumbs up. And if you have not yet subscribed, because it is your first time here, please subscribe to the channel. Hey there, IDK. Glad to have you here on this Wednesday night. And before we get to all the should be good televised college football games this weekend, I want to give you a quick stat that you may not know about, since it's about Oklahoma State and more specifically Mike Gundy, but it just shows how quickly coaches can fall from grace. You get a little bit more grace if you've won a national championship, but if not, you can go from being, a team's favorite coach to them wanting you gone in no time. Hey there, Aaron. Glad to have you here. Now, I'm about to talk some college football games on tap for the weekend, but first, Aaron, I wanted to give a quick Mike Gundy stat. We know he got fired by Oklahoma State earlier in the week. Mike Gundy altogether has spent more than half of his life at Oklahoma State, between playing, being an assistant coach, and head coach. He has spent 35 of his 58 years on earth associated with Oklahoma State in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Oklahoma State had 4 winning seasons in 16 years before Mike Gundy. Mike Gundy had 18 straight winning seasons, which is the ninth longest in NCAA history for a coach at one school. And now he's out of a job. Now, I think had he won a national championship, he would have gotten more grace, but he never got there. But, for them to have 4 winning seasons in 16 years before Mike Gundy, that tells you they were averaging a winning season about every 4 years. And then Mike Gundy comes along and has 18 straight winning seasons, and now he's out of a job. But, they'll find somebody else, but they're not going to find anybody that was as consistently consistent as Mike Gundy was. He never threatened for a national championship. They were ranked in the top 5 a couple of times back when they had Blackman at wide receiver, but, they were never a top 5 team. They just had a couple of great players and pulled off a couple of great wins. But he was just consistently consistent. He just won 7 or 8 games every single year, and then all of a sudden going into 2024, you could just tell that it was all coming apart, and it didn't get any better this year. That just tells you how quickly coaches can fall from grace. You have 18 straight winning seasons, and now a year and a half later, you're out of a job. Now, Mike Gundy, if he's saved his money up, he's got enough money to retire, but he may want to continue coaching. Hey there, Marcus. Glad to have you here. And hey there, Perps. Glad to have you here. But I think with Mike Gundy being fired, I think the 3 longest tenured head coaches, if I'm not mistaken now in college football, I think are Kirk Ferentz, Kyle Whittingham, and Dabo Swinney. I could be wrong. Don't quote me on that. But I know Kirk Ferentz is the longest. He's been at Iowa since 1999, so this is his 27th year as the Iowa head coach. The stream is about college football. Perps, thank you for asking. Come on in and join the chat and be with us. And I want to say Kyle Whittingham has been at Utah since 2005. That's off the top of my head. I don't have it wrote down. That could be wrong. But I think Urban Meyer left in 2005 to go to Florida. And they hired Whittingham. He's been there ever since then. And, of course, Dabo has been at Clemson full-time since 2009. But he got the interim job in 2008. So I think the 3 longest tenured head coaches are Kirk Ferentz, Kyle Whittingham, and Dabo Swinney now that Mike Gundy has been fired. Hey there, Eddie. Glad to have you here. And Perps, even if you don't, you can come on in, and I try to read the comments as I go, as long as they're logical and sensible. You always have the robots just come on here and say stupid stuff, trying to get your attention. If you do that, I'm going to ignore your comment. But as long as you talk sensible and logical, I try to read the comments as I go. But I also talk baseball, basketball, NASCAR, wrestling. And then I do top 10 countdowns. I did one this morning, and those could be about sports, wrestling, Halloween, Christmas, candy, restaurants. You just never know. Hey there, Dracula. Glad to have you here. But week 5 in the world of college football has a ton of good games. At least they look like they'll be good games on paper. So if you look at the schedule of games this weekend and you don't get excited about it, then you're not a college football fan. Just stop watching because there's no hope for you. But it all starts tomorrow night. We have Army and East Carolina at 7:30 on ESPN. And Eddie, this is the one time a year, the one game a year that I am a Crimson Tide fan when they play Georgia. I pull for them. Of course, I'm very objective when I give my opinions, but I think everybody knows by now I'm not a Georgia fan. So anytime Georgia loses, no matter who it is to, I'm a happy man. But unfortunately, I think Georgia wins the game. I just think Georgia's better than Alabama, so I hope I'm wrong. I hope Bama wins, but I think Georgia is the better team. Perps, I do it all when it comes to wrestling. I'm glad you asked that because I've been a professional independent referee for wrestling for 18 years. So, of course, I try to follow at least the local independent wrestling there is. I mean, there's independent wrestling all over, and there's way too many companies to follow all of them or even remember all of them's name. But I try to at least follow all the local ones. And then once I, meet some indie guys that are great, I try to follow their matches as they go that are posted on, YouTube. So, of course, being a professional wrestling independent referee, I follow independent wrestling. But I do talk about WWE and AEW here on the channel. It's mainly when they have premium live events or pay-per-views. I try to preview them and review them, but I don't come on here every week and talk about Raw and NXT and Dynamite and SmackDown and all that because there's just too much wrestling going on. And if I did that, it would be a wrestling channel, and there's too many other YouTube channels that focus just on wrestling and wrestling only, and this is a variety channel. So when it comes to WWE and AEW, I usually just preview and review their premium live events or pay-per-views, and that's it. But every time I have a wrestling show, I get on here and tell everybody where I'll be so that if they're in the area and they want to come to the show, great, because I love meeting people. So if anybody comes to the show, I'm just a referee, so I'm allowed to walk around and meet people. So I love to walk up to new people that watch the channel, shake their hand, tell them, nice to meet them, whatever. I know that I'm just a referee, so nobody comes to the show to see me. But if I can get the fans to come to the show, I'm fine with that. So I'm glad you asked that, but I talk AEW, WWE, and independent wrestling. I have 2 shows this weekend. Matter of fact, Friday night we have some good games. All the Friday night games, at least on paper, look like they'll be good games. We have Florida State and Virginia at 7 o'clock on ESPN. Now, the thing about this game is Florida State plays Miami next Saturday. So Florida State wins Friday night. Then next Saturday, we're going to have a top 10, possible top 5 matchup between Miami and Florida State because the Hurricanes are currently ranked number 2, and they're off this weekend. So if Florida State wins, they'll for sure be in the top 5, maybe even the top 5. Right now, I think they're 7th, I believe. So if they win Friday, depending on what happens above them, it could be Miami and Florida State, a top 5 matchup like it was back in the good old days of that rivalry. 9 o'clock on Fox, we have TCU and Arizona State. 10:30 on ESPN, we have Houston and Oregon State. And then on Saturday, I looked at the whole list of games on Saturday, and there's probably only 5 games that are going to be on TV. And I looked at it and said, not going to talk about that game because they should be blowouts. Usually there's way more than that, but there's just not a lot of games this weekend that on paper you look at it and say, that's not going to be a good game. Most of them should be very competitive. Starts at noon on Saturday, as always. On ESPN, we have Georgia Tech, Wake Forest. On Fox, we have USC and Illinois. Now, I know last week we had Texas Tech and Utah on the Fox noon game, and of course the game was in Utah, so it was 10 a.m. in Utah. Now, this game, I believe, is in Illinois, so it's 11 o'clock a.m. Central in Illinois, so not bad. But for the USC fans, it's going to be 9 o'clock in the morning, and you're going to be watching a live football game. Has to feel very strange. Hey there, loyalty and respect. Glad to have you here. ABC at noon has Notre Dame and Arkansas. The Big Ten Network at noon has Rutgers and Minnesota. Hey there, Ducks. Glad to have you here. Duke and Syracuse is the noon game on the ACC Network. Now, last week, Syracuse lost their quarterback for the season. He got hurt, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, late third quarter against Clemson, and he's out for the season. Now, both of Syracuse's quarterbacks were transfers, but of course, Peanut Butter and Jelly won the starting job, but he's out for the season. So now we'll see what Ricky Collins has. He'll be the orange quarterback for the rest of the year. ESPN2 at noon has Louisville and Pittsburgh. That'll be a good game as well. And then we know now that TNT carries college football. Well, Saturday at noon they have Cincinnati and Kansas. Fox Sports 1 has Central Florida and Kansas State. ESPNU has South Alabama and North Texas. Now, I know to most people, you see that and you're like, I'm not watching that game, but if you're a college football fan and you just want to see good competitive football, no matter who the teams are, I think that'll be a good competitive football game. Now moving into the 3:30 time slot. Saturday, CBS, Ohio State, and Washington. I know Washington on paper doesn't seem like they're very good, but Ohio State so far this year, of course, they're a phenomenal football team, but they haven't been scoring a lot of points, at least against decent level competition. So I expect the Huskies to stay in the game just because Ohio State's not going to put up 50 points, I don't think. But Ohio State will win the game, but it should at least be close for the first half. ABC at 3:30 has LSU and Ole Miss. And in case you haven't heard this yet, I believe it was yesterday that Lane Kiffin's oldest daughter, who I believe her name is Landry, said she is now dating the LSU linebacker, who I believe his name is Whit Weeks. LSU has two brothers on the football team. Last name is Weeks. One of them is Whit, and the other one I think is Wes. Well, I think Landry is dating Whit. So now you have the coach of Ole Miss who has a daughter who is dating the linebacker at LSU, and those two teams play this Saturday. Also at 3:30, Auburn and Texas A&M. That game is on ESPN. On Peacock at 3:30, Indiana. And Iowa, Indiana can't be more impressive than they were this past Saturday against Illinois. But Iowa's defense isn't what it's been for the last 20 years. So this game may end up being a blowout. But Iowa's had a pretty good offense so far this year, so maybe that game will be close at least for a half. And then this game is going to be close because it's two just dreadful football teams. So unless one team just has a buku of turnovers, it should be competitive because it's going to be a suck fest. But Big Ten Network, 3:30, UCLA and Northwestern. California and Boston College on the ACC Network. Baylor and Oklahoma State on ESPN. 2, Utah and West Virginia on Fox. Rice and Navy on the CBS Sports Network. Then at 4:15 on the SEC Network, we have Tennessee and Mississippi State. Now, Mississippi State's had a pretty good offense so far this year, and Tennessee's defense hasn't looked very impressive. So that should be a high-scoring game. So if you like touchdowns, that should be the game for you Saturday at 4:15. 7 o'clock on ESPN, Arizona and Iowa State. Iowa State looking to get to 5-0 on the season. Virginia Tech and NC State on the CW. Memphis and Florida Atlantic on ESPN2. 7:30 on NBC, Oregon and Penn State. 7:30 on ABC, Alabama and Georgia. So you're going to have two high-profile games on at the same time. So unless you've got two TVs in your living room or man cave or whatever room you choose to watch football in, unless you have two TVs or a split screen or a laptop in front of you and a TV in front of you, there's probably going to be a lot of back and forth flipping from one game to the next. But back in the day when I tried that, it didn't matter what games I watched. Anytime there was two games on at one time and one went to break and I hit, last channel, flashback, whatever your remote control said, every time I did that, the other game would also be in commercial. One game get to halftime, the other game get to halftime. So anytime I tried that, I never had no luck with it. But Alabama, Georgia, 7:30 ABC. Oregon, Penn State, 7:30 NBC. Also 7:30, a game that's probably going to be competitive that nobody will see because of Oregon and Penn State, Alabama and Georgia. But Appalachian State and Boise State, that is the 7:30 game on Fox Sports 1. 7:45 on the SEC Network, Kentucky and South Carolina. And then the late game, 10:15 on ESPN, BYU and Colorado. Eddie, I can recall back in the day when I was living with my grandparents and I had a TV and I'd be watching it. You could have one game start at 7 and the other game start at 7:15, and I would still flip back and forth, and both games would go to break at the same time. And you think, well, the 7 o'clock game started sooner, so it'll get to halftime, and I'll watch the other game. And the 7 o'clock game would have a really slow first half, and about the time it finally gets to halftime, the 7:15 game be at halftime. The 7 o'clock game would have an injured player, injury timeout, you flip over, and the other game is in timeout. Like, oh my gosh. So I would flip back and forth for 3.5, 4 hours, and I might see a total of 4 plays on the other game. That was just how my luck was back in the day. But now a lot of people this day and time, especially Eddie, don't do the back and forth flipping. Most people now either have a split screen TVs where you have one game on both sides, or you have two TVs side by side in your man cave. You can just watch both, or you have a laptop in front of you and you look up, look down, look up, look down, look up, look down. But I'm so clumsy. If I tried that, Eddie, I'd set my sweet tea beside my laptop and I'd knock it over and I'd hit it and ruin the laptop. That's just my luck. I have terrible, terrible luck. That's probably what I would do. But any thoughts on any of this? Please feel free to let me know. Let's go ahead and get our dad joke of the day in here. I just read that for a while, Houdini used a lot of trap doors in his act, but he was just going through a stage. And that does it for today's Ref Brandon and the Todd Family YouTube video. Until next time, it's Ref Brandon saying, just like in pro wrestling, life can be over by the count of 3. Tell your friends and family how much you love them.